So we are starting with this topic, abducent nerve, which is the sixth cranial nerve. You know about abducent nerve that it innervates lateral rectus, the extraocular muscle of the eyeball, which of course is a skeletal muscle. So the functional component of this nerve will be general somatic efferent to innervate the muscles, skeletal muscles derived from somites or somatomeres. Then other function from this nerve is to receive the proprioceptive sensations from the same muscle and relay it to the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. So that functional component is general somatic afferent. Okay. So these are the two components, same as it was in trochlear nerve. Well, in oculomotor nerve, there was an additional component, and that was general visceral efferent to innervate the smooth intraocular muscles. So most of it, the functions are same, the two functions mentioned here, they're the same in case of trochlear nerve. That has been taught to you. So we'll start with abducent nerve. You know how this nerve emerges, from where does it emerges on the undersurface of the brain. It was all like summarized, remember, in the introduction portion. This is the midbrain, then you have pons, and then the medulla. This is called the brain stem. So here you're seeing it is the pontomedullary junction. So, the abducent nerve nucleus lies within the lower section of the pons, and the nerve emerges on the ventral aspect of the brain stem at the pontomedullary junction medially, just above the pyramids. This, is the median sulcus, median fissure, sulcus, sorry, not fissure, it's sulcus. Then you have this anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus. So this bulging here is called the pyramids, and this one is called the olives. Okay, pyramids and olives. So just above the pyramids, at the pontomedullary junction, medially, the abducent nerve arises there. Okay. Then functional columns. This is like, this you should know by heart, like by this time, because I have been repeating. It was all discussed in detail when I was teaching about the nuclei of cranial nerves and the functional columns. So it's a unilateral diagram of one side of the brain stem. Here you find is the midline. Then this is sulcus limitans. This is the basal lamina. This lateral to sulcus limitans is the alar lamina. Because it innervates the skeletal muscle and is efferent, general somatic efferent. So its nucleus, you can see, is found here in this functional column called general somatic efferent, right? Okay. Then the other functional component, because it is afferent as well, general somatic afferent, bringing the proprioceptive sensations, and it was being relayed here in the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal, which is elongated nucleus in the midbrain. So this abducent nerve, remember once again that mesencephalic nucleus, the afferent neurons, the first order neurons, they are unipolar neurons. So the cytons lie within the mesencephalic nucleus, unlike the other sensory neurons where the cytons lie outside the CNS. Okay. Then here you're seeing is the brain stem. This is the pons. You have the midbrain here. Sorry, the midbrain has been cut out. Then this one is pons, and you have medulla. So in the cut section of pons, here you're seeing is the largest cranial nerve emerging from the upper portion of the pons ventrally. This is trigeminal nerve and the Gasserian ganglion. Then deep below, in the lower portion of the pons, you find embedded is this abducent nerve nucleus. They have zoomed it out, so you can see it here, right? So this will emerge here at the pontomedullary junction, just above the pyramids. Then the site of origin of abducent nerve you seeing is a transverse cut section of lower pons. So in transverse section, the lower pons, you will find that the upper portion is open dorsally because this is the floor of the fourth ventricle, right? So the roof here is formed by the cerebellum. And because I told you initially when I was teaching the, I think, general anatomy portion, then this bulging here anteriorly in the pons is because of the pontine flexure during the course of development. So this is the basilar portion of the pons, and you have this median sulcus here. Into this sulcus, it's the basilar artery that runs here. Then you find this medial longitudinal bundle. Remember, it was also seen in the midbrain. In the midbrain, it was also seen that it was extending parallel. Remember, it was seen adjacent to the oculomotor nucleus. It was seen adjacent to the trochlear nucleus, and down below now you're seeing it is adjacent to the abducent nucleus. So, and you remember the function was to integrate the impulses and synchronize the binocular eye movements, because the 7 muscles, they have to be synchronized, right, bilaterally. So it is this abducent nerve nucleus you're seeing, and it's the motor nucleus, right? So it is placed most medial in the brain stem because its functional column is general somatic efferent, so it is placed most medially. Then special visceral efferent, right? Special visceral efferent will be lateral to general somatic efferent. So special visceral efferent, you find is the nucleus of 7th nerve, the motor nucleus of facial nerve. Okay. So then one thing which you can see here, that the facial nerve nucleus, the fibers arising, they're not emerging. Actually, this also is emerging here. You can see at the pontomedullary junction lateral to the abducent nerve, but it could have like reached here straight away. But it takes this course, it winds medially, then dorsally, and winds around the abducent nerve nucleus so as to bring itself in approximation to the sensory nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, because you know it also makes a reflex arc. The muscles of the face are all innervated by facial nerve, and the impulses received, the exteroceptive sensation impulses received from the face, they are received through this trigeminal nerve. So to make a easier reflex, this nerve fibers take this course and to become in approximation with the trigeminal nerve nucleus. Got it? And they have shown it. Why? Can anybody tell me they've shown in 2 colors? Trigeminal nucleus, unlike other nucleus you see, they are all black colored, but this one has a shaded area. Why is this colored in 2 different colors? Trigeminal nerve nucleus. Anybody? Very good, Kirti. So it is the motor nerve nucleus. Remember, M for motor, M for medial. So trigeminal also has a motor nucleus which lies medial to its main sensory nucleus here. So this one is the motor nucleus of trigeminal. Remember, so this will be special visceral efferent. Got it? For the muscles derived from the first branchial arch, and this fibers will run along the mandibular nerve. And the lateral one will be is the main sensory nucleus of trigeminal nerve. And this course that it takes during the course of development, this facial nerve, this is called neurobiotaxis. And because of this coursing of this facial nerve dorsally to the nucleus of abducent nerve, there is a bulging seen on the dorsal aspect of the pons, so you can see in the floor of the fourth ventricle, and that's called facial colliculus. Got it? So that facial colliculus is because of this winding course of the facial nerve. Okay. Now you'll see the intraneural course of abducent nerve. This is abducent nerve, right? This one. So here you're seeing is the fourth ventricle, this dorsal aspect. This is the floor of the fourth ventricle. This is the ventral portion, the basilar portion of the pons, right? So, and you also know that this, pons, to the pons, it is this cerebellum attached with the help of middle cerebellar peduncles, right? And you also find this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle, which will descend down towards the medulla. Similarly, in the pons, you will also find superior cerebellar peduncle, which will reach up to the midbrain. Okay. If you remember the section of transverse section, the level of inferior colliculus of the midbrain, there ventrally you found is the superior cerebellar decussation, right? So you know that there are three cerebral peduncles and how they're attached to the three portions of the brain stem. So medial most you find here, it is this median longitudinal bundle. Just lateral to that, in the deeper portion of the pons, you find is abducent nerve nucleus, and even lateral to that will be facial nerve nucleus, because its functional column is a different functional column, right? And here you have medial lemniscus. Remember medial lemniscus? Anybody? What were the tracts as passing through medial lemniscus? It will be the second order neurons of the dorsal column, nucleus of fasciculus cuneatus, fasciculus gracchalis. Remember, they were carrying the proprioceptive sensations, gracchalis, from the lower half of the body, and that was also called the tract of Gall, remember? And tract of Bourach was the nucleus, fasciculus gracchalis. Fasciculus cuneatus was tract of Bourach, and tract of Gall was fasciculus gracchalis. And they were the first order neurons. They were without synapsing. Remember the first order neurons of the dorsal column? They were relaying in the nucleus proprius, lamina 3 and 4. And then they were without synapsing. The central neurons, they ascended up, right? At the, in the medulla, the mid of the medulla, they were decussating. And they actually relaying in the nucleus, nucleus gracchalis, nucleus cuneatus, and forming an internal arcuate band. And there it was decussating and reaching to the opposite side. So after decussating, these second order neurons, after decussating, they ascend up along with the medial lemniscus to relay in the thalamus. And if you remember the spinothalamic tract, there were two tracts, anterior and lateral spinothalamic tracts. Lateral spinothalamic tract, which was, one single word I told you regarding this, if it was out of asked, like clinical questions come upon that regarding, like, chordotomy or hemisection of spinal cord and all. So this tract, lateral spinothalamic tract, the first order neurons which were relaying in substantia gelatinosa, lamina 2, as well as in lamina 3 for temperature, so pain and temperature. These fibers were immediately decussating to the opposite side at the same spinal segment. This word has to be mentioned because there are other tracts which also decussated to the opposite side at the same level, but they might ascend to one or two segments, right? But this one is lateral spinothalamic tract, which immediately decussates to the opposite side, while the anterior spinothalamic tract, which was relaying in the nucleus proprius, lamina 3 and 4, was carrying proprioceptive, conscious proprioceptive sensations. Remember, the unconscious or subconscious proprioceptive sensations, they were being relayed in lamina 7, 6 and 7, because they were forming the spinocerebellar tracts. Okay? So this anterior spinothalamic tract, which is also carrying conscious proprioceptive fibers, they will ascend via medial lemniscus. So medial lemniscus, yes, anterior spinothalamic tract, it was not decussating at the same level, rather it was ascending to 2 or 3 segments above, while decussating reaches to the opposite segment, 2 or 3 segments above, opposite side. So, I mean, what I was conveying here is that medial lemniscus, if it's asked what does it carries, it carries actually its tracts, it's a ascending tracts, a bundle of ascending tracts, right? Tract itself is a bundle, but medial lemniscus is a bundle of tracts, and it carries fibers from, you know, dorsal column, which includes fasciculus cuneatus gracilis, dorsal column, and anterior spinothalamic tract. Okay? So this is medial lemniscus. Okay? And there you find is decussation of the trapezoid body, right, in between. This is related with hearing or auditory pathway, which we'll discuss later on. There in the pons, in the basilar portion of the pons, you find, this corticospinal tract or corticonuclear tract. This was a highway for the descending impulses called the pyramidal tract, right? So in the midbrain, it was coming down from, posterior limb of internal capsule, remember. So it was descending down while passing to the midbrain. It was passing through the cerebral crus cerebri. From midbrain, when it reaches to the pons, it forms this, through this, it passes through this basilar portion of the pons, and that's why it also is bulged, both the sides of the cisterna pontis. This actually is the basilar portion of the pons where you find is the basilar artery running, right? And here it's this cisterna pontis. So you find that the fibers, the pyramidal fibers, this corticospinal fibers, they will be here, as well as the pontine nucleus. I'll tell you about this when I'll be teaching you about the pons. So a little idea you've got about the different structures here. Remember, lateral spinothalamic tract was running separately, right? And this tract is called spinal lemniscus. Okay? So abducent nerve, it passes straight down, ventrally, crossing this medial lemniscus, then the basilar portion of the pons through the pyramidal tract in between, then it crosses and emerges, you can see, is on the ventral aspect of the pons, just above the pyramids. So this portion is pontomedullary junction, and you find this nerve emerging medially. About facial nerve, I've already told you how it forms an arc and it forms a bulge behind dorsally, and that is called facial colliculus. So facial nerve emerges lateral to abducent nerve nucleus at the pontomedullary junction. Remember, okay? And can you see again this nucleus of trigeminal? It has two shades. This one is the motor nucleus and this one is the sensory nucleus. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a transverse section of brainstem. Sorry, transverse knee. This is a sagittal section of the brainstem when you see laterally. So this is midbrain, pons, medulla, and blue color nuclei are the motor nuclei, and the red ones are the sensory nuclei. And the green one is the nuclei which we are studying right now. And this is abducent nerve nucleus. You can see its location. It is seated deep within the pons, more towards the lower portion of the pons. It is seated deep, right? And you can see is this facial nerve nucleus, and how the facial nerve nucleus, the fibers were reaching, moving medially, winding behind abducent nucleus and then running out like this ventrally. So because of this, there is a bulging here in the floor of the fourth. This is the fourth ventricle, right? Tent-shaped cavity. This aqueduct, this is central canal, and this is foramen lusca and megendai, which was opening it into the cisterna magna. So in the floor you find is a bulging because of this facial nerve. That's why this is called facial colliculus. That's how it emerges out. And you can see that this abducent nerve, you can see the course, it runs downward, forwards, and ventrally. And it emerges here. You can see this portion is pontomedullary junction, and it is medial most arising. So here you find it will all be covered with pia mater and then the arachnoid matter. So there will be a cistern formed here, and that's called cisterna pontis. Okay. Here it was interpeduncular cistern, right? Here it is cisterna pontis. Here, cisterna pontis, right on the basilar aspect of the pons. And here it is cisterna magna. Okay. So you have seen abducent nerve nucleus. Now, six cranial nerve connections. I believe if it's not visible, you can concentrate and listen to what I'm saying. So the connections of the abducent nerve will be the same as it was in case of oculomotor nerve and trochlear nerve. It will all have the same connections, except the only connection which trochlear and abducent will not be having, that will be from the pretectal nucleus. And this pretectal nucleus was communicating to Edinger-Westphal nucleus of both the sides bilaterally for the consensual light reflex, right? So this consensual light reflex is, is a feature which you found in with the course of oculomotor nerve only. So this connection will not be present here in the sixth nerve. Rest of the connections it will also have, this abducent nerve. It will also be communicating to the upper motor neurons, right? Remember, and this is cortico-nuclear tract, right? So it will communicate to the higher centers, rather through the higher centers. Remember, I told you move your eyes consciously as well unconsciously. So the impulses from the higher centers may be visual centers, maybe auditory centers, with the psychosomatic centers. So all impulses from the higher centers will descend down, and those pathways those fibers will be called the corticonuclear fibers. So it is communicating with the corticonuclear tract, and this will be an ipsilateral pathway. Okay. Then it will also be communicating to the median longitudinal bundle. This I showed you in the transfer section, that how this median longitudinal bundle was placed medial to the nucleus of abducent nerve. And in case of trochlear nerve, because the trochlear oculomotor nerve nucleus, they were within the gray matter surrounding the cerebral aqueduct. So there, this median longitudinal bundle was placed ventromedially, and along with eighth nerve nucleus, right? So they all intercommunicate, they integrate and synchronize, and for the proper bilateral, or you can say binocular movements of the eyes, synchronized movements of the eyeballs. So then it will also communicate. Remember, ये हम बार बार बता चुके हैं that tectobulbar, this is, it will also be communicated. This is written here is tectobulbar or tectospinal tract for visuoprotective reflexes. इसको 3 graded में बताया था कि अगर कोई dust आ रही है towards your eyes, or somebody claps in front of your eyes, so you blink your eyelids, right? And then you might tilt your neck also. If somebody throws a paper ball, you blink, you tilt your neck. So there it is, this tectobulbar tract, right, for the movement of LPS in response to that, as well as movement of your neck muscles, right? So because this impulse is through the visual reflex, so that's why it's called visuoprotective reflex. ठीक. And एक और बताया था मैंने कि if like extreme condition, एक और बताया था कि if somebody throws a stone towards your face, so you bring your hand in front of your eyes. So that means this also is a protective reflex, but this is being mediated through the cervical nerves, through the brachial plexus, right? So that means this tract is tectospinal tract. So that means this the muscles here, this nerve will be communicating through this tract as well, that is tectobulbar or tectospinal tract for visuoprotective reflexes. Then it will also communicate to the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and that is to relay the proprioceptive sensations that it is bringing from the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. Got it? Okay. So we have emerged from the intraneural course. Now we'll study about the intraneural course you have studied. Now we'll study about intracranial course. This you're seeing is midbrain, then you have pons and the medulla. Dorsally you're seeing is superior colliculus, inferior colliculus. This is the fourth ventricle, cerebellum. This is central canal, and this is the medulla oblongata. So this, I told you, the CSF surrounding the pons here is cisterna pontis, and this is interpeduncular cistern. So this is cisterna pontis. Let me ask you, which artery, if it's asked, which artery emerges in cisterna pontis, like origin of which artery is within the cisterna pontis? Who will tell me? Basilar artery. Basilar artery, actually उसको origin यूं नहीं कहते basically, because it is formed by the fusion of two arteries. Yes, anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Very good. Anterior inferior cerebellar artery arises here, in the cisterna pontis. And remember the two arteries, superior cerebellar and superior cerebellar as well, that arises here. Posterior cerebellar will arise here. by the bifurcation of basilar artery in the interpedunculaire system. Okay? So the two arteries, remember, basilar artery. Actually, this here, some authors consider that this portion up till here is cisterna pontis, not only at the pontomedullary junction. So if you cover this much, you will have two arteries which arise here within the cistern. Of course, there are other branches from basilar artery, labyrinthine arteries also. But the two arteries which have been commonly asked is anterior inferior cerebellar artery and superior cerebellar artery. Both of them arise in the cisterna pontis. And no doubts that labyrinthine artery will also arise here from the basilar artery. Okay. And posterior inferior cerebellar that will arise here, पीछे की तरफ. ठीक है, यहाँ से course actually it will wind here and it will reach in the sternum magnum. ठीक. Okay. So we are talking about the course of abducent nerve. You can see is arising from the pontomedullary junction. And remember that this much portion of the brain stem, including the cerebellum, that makes it, hindbrain. Hindbrain includes pons, medulla, and cerebellum, and that's called rhombencephalon. ठीक है. And among the rhombencephalon is further divided into metencephalon and myelencephalon. Metencephalon is pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon is medulla. So hindbrain and the lower portion of the midbrain is a content of posterior cranial fossa, also called infratentorial compartment. So that means you automatically got to know that now this all is a content of posterior cranial fossa, and you find that this is basi-occiput, which is an obliquely inclined, because on the undersurface you find this surface here is clivus, which is reaching down to the anterior margin of foramen magnum, right? And here you find is apex of petrous temporal bone. And on the upper border of petrous temporal, you find is a dural venous sinus called superior petrosal sinus. So you find that this layer of dura mater, this is an endosteal or the merged layer of dura, which splits here at the upper border of the petrous temporal and divides into the meningeal layer and endosteal layer to enclose a cavernous sinus on the either side of the body of sphenoid or either side of sella turcica. So that means this is ascending, like the course in this cisterna pontis of abducent nerve will be ascending upwards, forwards, and medially, right, to reach towards the apex of petrous temporal bone. See? So when it reaches there to the apex of petrous temporal bone, running forward, upwards, and medially, then it perforates this posterior wall of cavernous sinus. Remember, these two nerves, third and fourth, they were entering the cavernous sinus by perforating its roof. Oculomotor was perforating the roof just lateral to the posterior clinoid process, and trochlear nerve was perforating the roof at the posterolateral corner of the roof, right? So they were entering by perforating the roof of cavernous sinus. This will enter by perforating the posterior wall of the cavernous sinus, right? So when it will perforate, it will actually have a fold of dura from the apex of petrous reaching to the sphenoid, body of sphenoid, and that is called petrosphenoidal ligament. That is called petrosphenoidal ligament. So abducent nerve, while it arches or jumps over the apex of petrous, it is like passing below this petrosphenoidal ligament, and that space formed is called canal of Dorello. This was asked in PG entrance exam sometime, that which cranial nerve passes through canal of Dorello. So it is abducent nerve, right? And the canal is between the apex of petrous and the petrosphenoidal ligament. So now it will run within the cavernous sinus along with the internal carotid artery and the medial side, medial wall of the cavernous sinus. Okay. So one thing you remember that it is taking a high jump because there's related clinical applied portion also. Now you're seeing is the intracavernous course of abducent nerve. Intracavernous course is how, you know, once you're seeing is that this one you're seeing is a coronal section, right? So you're seeing that abducent now, I told you, is reaching into the sinus by perforating the posterior wall above to the apex of petrous temporal. Then initially it is running just below this internal carotid artery. An internal carotid artery, remember how it was entering into the cavernous sinus from below, like from the foramen lacerum. It enters into the cavernous sinus through the foramen lacerum from below. And it will have a sigmoid course within this sinus for this siphon, and that's why it's called siphon. And because of it, the pulsations of internal carotid artery within the cavernous sinus, it causes turbulence, or you can say it causes, you know, waves in the sinus, so that the blood here, you know, it is all having trabeculae. It is like, you know, a meshwork of trabeculae here. So there are very chances that sluggish flow of blood might start clotting here, or might, you know, to make it like propulsion, to make the, you know, propulsive, this, because of this carotid artery pulsations, the blood in the cavernous sinus keeps moving. So, and after this, it will emerge here onto the roof in the anterior portion to continue as the cerebral portion of internal carotid. So that was about internal carotid, though abducent nerve, which was initially below to this artery, but further in course, it will lie in infralateral relation to the internal carotid artery. This also is been asked, that what's the relation of abducent nerve and internal carotid? Abducent nerve is running infralateral to the internal carotid artery in the cavernous sinus along its medial wall. By the way, just for a revision, this relation infralateral has been used many times. Infralateral abducent nerve के साथ 2 बार यूज हुआ है. ठीक है, I'll tell you, this relation has again been repeated in the orbit. So I'll be telling you again. An infralateral relation is also repeated, is also seen while talking about a relationship of optic nerve and ophthalmic artery in the optic canal. So there also, ophthalmic artery enters the orbit along with optic nerve through the optic canal, and the relation is that the ophthalmic artery lies infralateral to the optic nerve. Okay. So, and the third relation, I'll just tell you when I'll be teaching you about the relationships of this nerve in the orbit. So ये बड़ा आसान सा हो गया तुम्हारे पास. इंफ्रोलेटरल 3 relations हैं यहाँ पे. One is abducent nerve in the cavernous sinus, related infralaterally to the internal carotid artery. Then here you're seeing is this apex of orbit seen from the anterior view. Where you find is this roof, the lateral wall, the floor, and the medial wall. So this fissure formed between the roof and the lateral wall, as well as the body and lateral wall, as well as the floor and lateral wall, this comma-shaped fissure is called superorbital fissure. And at the body of sphenoid has this opening, this canal called optic canal. So enclosing the two structures, there is this common tendinous ring. This common tendinous ring encloses the optic canal as well as the middle portion of superior orbital fissure. And onto this ring, there are attachment or rather origin of the four recti muscles: superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and lateral rectus. Above to the superior rectus will be LPS, and supromedially from the body of sphenoid, it will be superior oblique. LPS कहाँ से rise कर रही है? Lesser wing of sphenoids. This is lesser wing of sphenoid. And this is the greater wing of sphenoid, right? This canal is within the body of sphenoid. Just again a revision about optic canal. Who will tell me the transverse section of optic canal at its opening within the middle cranial fossa, at its opening in the orbits, or at the midsection of the optic canal? There were different shapes. Yes, Akash, तुमने लिखा था, वो सही लिखा था, infrolateral to inferior branch of oculomotor nerve. We'll discuss just now. But what I'm asking is, what are the cut sections of optic canal? Yes, मैंने बताया था इसको, just like penile urethra. If you remember the cut sections of penile urethra, you'll remember. Penile urethra is transverse slit, and the terminal urethra is a vertical slit. Similarly, optic canal, when it opens in the middle cranial fossa, it is a transverse elliptical opening, while when it opens anteriorly in the orbit, it is a vertical elliptical opening. And at the mid portion of the optic canal, it is circular. Okay. So now you see optic nerve, when it enters in the orbit, it is infrolaterally related to ophthalmic artery. That is the second relation you got to remember with the word infrolateral. Okay. So structures passing superior orbital. Remember, this not only is for your theory, this also is a hit question in your Viva OC exams, as well as for your PG entrance exams. So once again, revise fast the structures emerging or passing through the superior orbital fissure from the suprolateral portion. It is LFT, lacrimal, frontal, and trochlear nerves, right? And from the middle portion, it will be the two divisions of oculomotor nerve. Remember, upper portion was innervating two muscles, and that is superior rectus and LPS. The inferior division was innervating three muscles, and which was a longer division. It was innervating medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique. And the largest branch of this oculomotor nerve was nerve to inferior oblique, which was also giving parasympathetic fibers to the ciliary ganglion. And this was innervating the posterior border of inferior oblique. Rest all the muscles were innervated on the orbital surface. Got it? So in between the two divisions of oculomotor, it will be nasociliary which will emerge here. Okay. So nasociliary, you finding it here, which is a branch of V1 division trigeminal nerve, ophthalmic nerve, right? And now again, infrolateral word has been used. This also has been asked. That abducent nerve, first of all, from where does it emerges in the orbit? It passes into the orbit through the middle portion of superior orbital fissure, one thing. Then it passes infrolaterally to the two divisions of oculomotor nerve, right? So here also it is passing infrolaterally in the middle portion of superior orbital fissure, that is abducent nerve. Now the two veins, right? These are veins reaching, the vein have a reverse course, right? From the face, they're moving behind. So this is superior ophthalmic vein, which will pass from supralateral portion and will drain into the cavernous sinus. And if inferior ophthalmic vein, actually I'll tell you that among talking about vessels, then venous circulation always have a lot of anomalies. It does not have a fixed course always. So if the inferior ophthalmic vein has few options, either it passes or dips through the inferior orbital fissure and will drain into the pterygoid venous plexus, or either it will communicate with the superior orbital fissure within the superior ophthalmic vein within the orbit, and through this it will drain into the cavernous sinus. Or it might have both, like it might inferior ophthalmic vein will give a twig to superior ophthalmic vein so as to drain partly into the cavernous sinus, and partly it will pass through the inferior ophthalmic inferior orbital fissure to drain down into the pterygoid venous plexus. Got it? And don't forget about this artery. This also I told you when I was teaching you about the blood supply of meninges. So this is our artery, a branch from the lacrimal artery, which is a branch of ophthalmic artery. So this is having a recurrent course from the orbit. It is going back into the middle cranial fossa to supply the meninges to the dura there. So that's why it's a recurrent meningeal branch of ophthalmic artery. More appropriately, it's a branch from lacrimal artery. Okay. So that was about how it enters. Now let's see how it innervates the muscle, and which muscle it innervates. It's lateral rectus. This is the common tendinous ring, and you find this is the optic nerve and the four nerves entering into the orbit through the middle portion or between this common tendinous ring. These are the two divisions of oculomotor, nasociliary as well as abducent. So recti, you have superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, and a lateral rectus. This will be LPS, which will be dorsal to superior rectus, and this will be superior oblique, which will be supromedial to the medial rectus, right? And a sling formed below the eyeball that will be formed by inferior oblique, right? So these are the muscles you're seeing now. This abducent nerve, which is like entering infrolaterally in this common tendinous ring, and it will pass laterally. Remember, one other exception about this nerve supply is that it is the only muscle, lateral rectus, which is innervated on its ocular or medial surface. Rest all the muscles, extraocular muscles of the eyeball, they are all innervated on the orbital surface, except lateral rectus, which is innervated on its ocular surface, right? And about inferior oblique, it was innervated on its posterior border. Got it? Here you seeing it is the nerve to inferior oblique through which there is this parasympathetic fibers reaching to the ciliary ganglion. Okay. Now about lateral rectus muscle, you are seeing is a sagittal section and the view is a lateral view. Here you seeing is the eyeball, and now look here, this is the common tendinous ring. You have this superior rectus here. This is the inferior rectus here. By the way, you all have been taught about the extraocular muscles. Let me ask you now, how about the insertion of these recti? There were four recti, and they were all attached into the anterior hemisphere of the eyeball, except the two obliques. The two obliques are inserted on the posterior hemisphere of the eyeball. So anterior, that we call it because of the equatorial plane here. So anterior hemisphere pe there are four recti attached, and just a little away from the limbus that you call as the corneoscleral junction. So if it's asked, like, which extraocular muscle is more closely attached to the limbus? Yes, it will be the medial rectus, right? Superior oblique is furthermost. Actually, you can, you can imagine here that if you are seeing an eyeball of the right side, this is a right eyeball anterior view, the and to the limbus, to the margins of the corneoscleral junction, the four recti will be attached. So if you draw, you go anti-clockwise. anti-clockwise means superior rectus, lateral rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus. All the four muscles will approach toward the limbus to get inserted. So the furthest away from the limbus will be superior rectus, then lateral rectus, then inferior rectus, and then the medial rectus. So the medial rectus will be more closely inserted towards the limbus, and furthest away from the limbus will be superior rectus. Anyways, so you seeing here is the orbital surface. This is the orbital surface of lateral rectus. Okay. Then this muscle which runs, I told you, dorsal to superior rectus will be LPS, right? And it will be attached here with, when this reaches here to the upper eyelids, there will be a tarsal plate which is derived from orbital septum. Then LPS will be attached on the anterior surface of the orbital or of the tarsal plate, as well as few of its fibers will merge with the palpebral portion of orbicularis oculi. Okay. But it will have an additional smooth muscle component called Muller's muscle, which will insert onto the upper border of tarsal plate. Okay, so that is LPS. Then the two muscle, this muscle you can see here, this is superior oblique, right? Superior oblique was arising supromedial to the medial rectus. So superior oblique, which runs superior oblique runs along the upper surface of the medial wall of the orbit, and here you seeing is this lateral crest of the lacrimal fossa. There's a fibrocartilaginous pulley. Through this pulley, the interbelly tendon of superior oblique winds. Now look at that. Actually, maybe I'll teach you about the movements of the eyes. Then it will be difficult if you're not understanding the course of the muscle fibers. So the superior oblique, the post tendinous belly. This belly will wind. You can see here it is winding backwards, laterally. Okay, backwards and laterally, and it will cross the equatorial plane and will insert in the post-suprolateral quadrant of the eyeball in the posterior hemisphere, in between superior and lateral rectus muscle. That is the insertion of superior oblique. Now look here, this muscle, inferior oblique, it takes origin from the anterior margin of the orbit on its medial surface, anterior most portion of its inframedial surface of the medial wall at the margins of the orbit. There it is origin of inferior oblique muscle. This muscle will pass backwards and laterally and will pass below. Remember, it will pass, or you can say the lowest lying muscle is inferior oblique and the highest lying muscle is LPS. So it will pass backwards and laterally, winding below the inferior rectus. Then it will insert there on the infralateral quadrant of posterior hemisphere of the eyeball, in between inferior and lateral rectus muscle. Now, after seeing the insertion of these two muscles, these two obliques, can you see that they are actually attached nearly to the, same point, just above, supralateral quadrant it is superior oblique, and infralateral quadrant it is inferior oblique, that is attached on the posterior hemisphere of the eyeball. So if you contract this muscle, what will happen? The eyeball, first of all, will dip down and will be rotated medially, right? So that if you remember when I was teaching you about the trochlear nerve, that I told you that the action, the exclusive, like, exclusive means, if you rule out the action of other muscles, the alone action of superior oblique will be that it will dip the eyeball inframedially, right? And that's why you asked the person to look towards the tip of the nose while testing the action of superior oblique. Inferior oblique, you can see if you pull this muscle, one thing, if you pull this muscle, what will happen? The eyeball, first of all, what will happen is eyeball will be rotated laterally, and about superior oblique also. If you think that if you contract this muscle, eyeball will be rotated along the vertical axis medially, that is intorsion, right? And if you contract this muscle, eyeball will be rotated inwards, like inwards ka matlab hai aise clockwise, and that will form the inferior oblique, will cause this movement of extortion, right? Outwards movement. And it will also pull the eye above. ये oblique course है ना, तो upwards इसका gaze आएगा, upwards outwards, ठीक, as well as extortion. That I'll tell you again with the help of another diagram. We'll just remain here to this lateral rectus muscle. Have you understood the origin and insertion of the muscle? Clear है, पूरी lateral जा रही है, इसका एक ही काम होगा lateral rectus का, that is to abduct if you contract this muscle, it will pull the eyeball laterally, right? So the only action of lateral rectus is for abduction of the eyeball. Along which axis? Along vertical axis. Okay. Finally, the summary here of abducent nerve you are seeing is this lower section of the pons. This is abducent nerve nucleus, and medial to that is the medial longitudinal bundle. The fibers through this will pass along here. It will pass through the medial lemniscus, then through the basilar portion of the pons, through the cerebral. This all is middle cerebral peduncle, through the pyramidal tracts, and will emerge. You can see here on the basilar portion of the pons, medially at the pontomedullary junction. And remember what artery was arising there. This is basilar artery running in the basilar groove. So the artery arising here was inferior cerebellar artery. That's why I asked you that artery which arises here in this cistern is inferior cerebellar artery. Although a little higher above, superior cerebellar artery will also arise there. Then this artery, this actually has been asked that in the intracranial course, all this was resting over the clivus, remember? It was resting, this portion of the pons is resting over the clivus in the posterior cranial fossa. And the basilar artery was also running there over the clivus. So this artery is going both the sides towards, winding behind, also winding behind laterally to reach the cerebellum. This abducent nerve, important thing, it is dorsally related. Remember, the relation of the nerve and artery is that abducent nerve crosses the anterior inferior cerebellar artery from above, that it is dorsally, the nerve is dorsally related to the artery, and the artery is anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Then it will ascend upward, forward, and medially towards the apex of petrous temporal bone, and will perforate the posterior wall of the cavernous sinus below the petrosphenoidal ligament through the canal of Dorello, will run in the medial, in relation to the medial wall of cavernous sinus, along with internal carotid artery running infralateral to the artery, and will reach the superior orbital fissure through its middle portion, lying and infralaterally to the two divisions of oculomotor nerve, and when it emerge in the orbit, it will innervate the lateral rectus muscle of the eyeball on its ocular surface, right? That was about abducent nerve. Now the testing of individual muscles. This is really very important because a lot of students have this confusion about the action and testing. Remember the action, when you talk about the action, like if a eyeball, I remember in NEET PG 2020, there was a question like an image was given with the eyeball having a gaze in a particular fixed direction, and it was asked that what is the muscle involved in this movement of the eye. So that's why I emphasize again and again, so learn the concepts and go through the diagrams, because image based questions around 50% ये surgical side के जो questions होते हैं, 40% questions are image based. So there are two different things actually related to extraocular muscles. One thing is the movement of the combined movement, because in life when you are moving your eyes, it is all combined movement with the help of the 6 extraocular muscles, leaving LPS for the eyelids. The movement of the eyeball, you have 6 extraocular muscles, and with the help of those muscles actually is a combined action. So when, this will be surprising that the action of superior oblique is something different, and when you ask for testing of that muscle, then you have to move the eyeball in another direction. So make sure you learn this. This is an eyeball, let's say, and you can see medial rectus because this is a right eyeball. So medial rectus and lateral rectus, I told you it's no confusions here. The only thing is medial rectus, what it does, it is adduction of the eyeball, pulling it medially towards the nose, and lateral rectus, what it does, it abducts the eye towards the temporal side, right? Okay, now look here, important thing is this arrow, this directions is the direction of anatomical background, that how in which direction the muscle will pull the eyeball. The pupil of the eyeball will be looking in which direction because of the individual action of that muscle. So look here, that superior oblique, as I told you, will be directed downwards and medially, right? So downwards and adducted eye, it is the sole action of superior oblique. Inferior oblique क्या कर रही है? Upwards and adduction. ठीक है? Recti क्या कर रहे हैं? Lateral rectus और superior rectus and inferior rectus. Superior rectus का जो action है, that is upwards and outwards, and inferior rectus का जो action है, that is downwards and outwards, or you can say downwards and abducted eye is because of inferior rectus. Upwards and abducted eye is because of superior rectus. Got it? So 6 muscles moving the eyeball: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Clear? Now, regarding the combined movements in a live subject, when you move, the actions performed by these muscles will be different. Now look here, the diagram which I had shown you when I was teaching, oculomotor now or trochlear now, I believe they must have shown. In fact, remember in oculomotor now I have shown you the diagram where it was superior rectus, superior oblique was written here, inferior oblique was written here, superior rectus was written here, inferior rectus was written here. So don't get confused. We are still coming back to the same thing, that superior rectus moves the eyeball. की action क्या है? It depresses, abducts, and internally rotates the eyeball in a clockwise direction. So this is the action performed by superior oblique. ठीक, action performed अलग चीज हो गई, testing of muscle अलग चीज हो गई. ठीक, that is two different things. Remember, action is this. Action of the superior oblique is that it depresses and abducts the eye and internally rotates the eye. Inferior oblique action क्या होगा? Action will be that it will elevate the eyeball and it will abduct the eyeball and will externally rotate, externally rotate the eyeball in anti-clockwise direction. About superior rectus, what it will do, it will adduct the eyeball, it will elevate the eyeball, and it will bring about intorsion, right? Inwards or clockwise movement of the rotation of the eyeball. Inferior rectus, what it will do is depress the eyeball, adduct the eyeball, and will also help in extorsion or anti-clockwise movement of the eyeball. ठीक है, समझ में आ गया है? इन ये एक्चुअली इधर आ जाएगा, ये इधर आ जाएगा. आई थिंक जो पिछले वाले डायग्राम में था ऑक्यूलोमोटर नर्व में, दैट वाज मिसिंग दीज कंपोनेंट्स. ठीक है, ये कंपोनेंट एक्चुअली टेस्टिंग ऑफ आईबॉल के लिए. ठीक, नाउ यू लुक हियर. एक्चुअली ये फिजियोलॉजी में भी कराया जाता होगा, कराया जाएगा, मेडिसिन में भी कराया जाएगा, क्योंकि you have to like check for the different cranial nerve movement of the, and as well as the different extraocular muscles. Okay. So how to check these muscles? Medial rectus and the direction to move the eye while testing the muscle. So you have a subject on which you have to examine, and you have to check the actions and check the integrity of each of these individual muscles. So how will you test? For superior rectus, you will ask him, remember this thing. These lines I told you is for the testing. These are lines for the testing of the muscles. So for checking the superior rectus, you will ask the subject to look upwards and outwards, right? Laterally and upwards. To check the inferior rectus, this arrow. Ask the subject to look downwards and laterally. Lateral rectus, medial rectus, no much problems. Lateral rectus, ask the subject to look laterally. Medial rectus, ask the subject to look medially or adduct the eye. Then for inferior oblique, this arrow. For inferior oblique, ask the subject to look upwards and medially. For inferior, for superior oblique, this is the action, the direction on which you have to check the action of this muscle. So for superior oblique, ask the person to look downwards and medially. If he can perform these movements, that means all these 6 muscles are intact. Okay, so this was about the testing of individual extraocular muscles. Now, this sort of question was asked in your NEET PG 2020. So there was a single eye. Given, and you had to write about or tick about the correct muscle, which the action being performed by which muscle. So now look here. Now in this diagram, what we are focusing is upon these things. These are the actions brought about these muscles, right? ये अब हम इस पे ध्यान देंगे. ठीक है, तो अब देखो, upwards and medially the action will be by superior rectus, both the eyes, upwards and medially by superior rectus. If you're looking upwards and outwards, then it is inferior rectus. With the other eye, upwards and medially, right? Because we have a binocular movement. So both the eyes move synchronized way में, ठीक है, together in the same direction. So if you're moving the right eye upwards and outwards, the left eye will move upwards and inwards, right? So this will be by superior rectus. अपवर्ड्स में यू डोंट हैव टू थिंक मच, बिकॉज अपवर्ड्स में क्या होता है, दो मसल्स होती हैं, राइट, सुपीरियर रेक्टस एंड इंफीरियर ऑब्लिक. Superior rectus and inferior oblique, both of them will help you elevate the eyes to look up. Yeah, if you are asked to look right side, so when you're looking right side, so you, with the help of right, in the right eye it will be lateral rectus, and in the left eye it will be medial rectus. Similarly, looking downwards and medially, now this you can see यहाँ पे हमने testing में this diagram, if it's asked like which muscle is being tested, then the answer will be superior oblique. And if it's asked a person is looking downward and inferiorly, downwards and medially with an adducted eye, which muscle is performing this action, then here you can write it is inferior rectus. Downwards and medial gaze is by inferior rectus. And downwards and lateral, that means downwards and abducted eye, this action is being performed by superior oblique. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे कंफ्यूजन नहीं होना चाहिए, बिल्कुल बार बार बता रहे हैं. टेस्टिंग ऑफ मसल्स में अलग तरह से चेक करते हैं, एंड मूवमेंट ऑफ द आई बॉल इन अ पर्टिकुलर गेज, इफ दे आस्क, then you have to remember the different actions performed by different muscles. ठीक, तो downwards and medially the action will be by inferior rectus. लुकिंग डाउनवर्ड्स इंफीरियरली बाय बोथ द आईज, दो मसल आ जाएंगी इसमें, कौन सी, इंफीरियर रेक्टस एंड सुपीरियर ऑब्लिक. If you're looking towards the left side, right, so with your left eye you will move it laterally, right, so on the left eye it will be lateral rectus, and in the right eye it will be medial rectus, right. So make sure your two different things should be clear, absolutely clear on mind, क्योंकि इस पे क्वेश्चन बहुत पूछे जाते हैं एंड ये कंफ्यूजन बन जाता है बाद में. ठीक है, टेस्टिंग ऑफ मसल्स के लिए अलग डायरेक्शंस होते हैं एंड एक्शन ऑफ मसल के अलग डायरेक्शन. ठीक है, because action में it is all mixed up, like because overlapping of action of different other muscles also. Okay, now once again just a revision. If it's injury of oculomotor nerve, what will, like, how will the patient present if it's having an injury of oculomotor nerve? Oculomotor nerve injury, what I'm talking is in lower motor neurons, right? So it innervates 5 muscles, remember. So 5 muscles में LPS चली गई तो क्या हो जाएगा, drooping of the eyelids. ठीक, and remember this oculomotor nerve, I told you initially, if it's a compressing force from inside, because it was passing between 2 arteries, remember, posterior cerebral artery and superior cerebellar artery. And in cases of aneurysm of these arteries, the nerve will undergo compression, and when it goes compression, remember the peripheral fibers in the nerve are the parasympathetic fibers. So in earlier course of compression of nerve, you will find the response of the smooth muscles. So the autonomic loss will be the early loss, and that's why in early symptoms of oculomotor nerve injury, you will find that accommodation reflex and pupillary reflex are lost, and the lateral squint will be a lateral phenomenon. ठीक है, so and what that was, तीन चीजें याद रखनी. One is LPS, जैसे drooping of eyelid हो गई, partial drooping, remember, क्योंकि smooth muscle is intact, right, that is sympathetically innervated. So partial drooping of eyelids, then loss of pupillary and accommodation reflex, and then डाउनवर्ड्स एंड abducted आई. डाउनवर्ड्स एंड abducted आई क्यों हो जाएगी, क्योंकि 5 मसल्स तो पैरालाइज हो गई, रिमेनिंग क्या बची, लेटरल रेक्टस बची और सुपीरियर ऑब्लिक बची. तो हमने बताया था लेटरल रेक्टस इट्स abducting द आई, और दूसरी क्या बची, सुपीरियर ऑब्लिक. सुपीरियर ऑब्लिक का एक्शन क्या था, डाउनवर्ड्स एंड आउटवर्ड्स, राइट. सो दैट way the patient or the subject will present with the affected eye looking downwards and outwards. And the secondary symptoms will be that because of its he will be in a habit to look to elevate the upper eyelid on the affected side, he will like with the, he will use his frontalis muscle, right, to elevate the eyelid, and that's why you will find that there will be wrinkles and raised eyebrows on the affected side. Okay. Then conjugate movements of the eyes, conjugate position of the eyes in a primary position when you are asking the subject to focus towards you, so both the eyes here are seeing in the normal position. Then to check for the, this is for the abducent nerve. As I told you, abducent nerve is lateral rectus. So उससे क्या कराएंगे हम, जो है, I mean, this is actually not testing, rather this is a presenting complaint, right? Testing a muscle is a different thing and presenting complaint is a different thing. Presenting complaint ho ya sign, or rather when a subject will sit in front of you, right, focusing you and talking towards you, you will find that his affected eye will be looking medially. Okay, so no abduction of the right eye on looking to the side, paralyzed side. ठीक है, सो उससे क्या करे, उस आई मीन कुछ भी नहीं, सामने बैठ रहा है, उसकी आंख जो है मीडियल अडक्टेड है, सिंपल सी बात है। थर्ड नर्व में क्या हो जाएगा, अबडक्टेड एंड डाउनवर्ड, यानी कि आउटवर्ड एंड डाउनवर्ड मूवमेंट होती आएगी आई बॉल। सिक्स नर्व में क्या हो जाएगा, अडक्टेड हो जाएगी आई बॉल, क्योंकि ओवर अब डोमिनेट कौन सी कर रही है, ऑक्यूलोमोटर नर्व डोमिनेट करेगी, मीडियल रेक्टस विल अडक्ट द आई, सो दिस विल बी द प्रेजेंटिंग साइन। Subject will come sitting in front of you with this squint, medial squint. Remember, okay? चेक करने के लिए उससे कहोगे, तब उससे बोलेंगे नाउ। अब चेक करने के लिए हम वाला बात यूज करेंगे, क्या लेटरल रेक्टस का एक्शन क्या था, टू अबडक्ट द आई। अब उससे कहेंगे कि भाई ये अगर लेफ्ट साइड है तो लेफ्ट साइड देख लो, लेफ्ट आई है तो उससे कहेंगे लेफ्ट साइड देखो, तब हमें इसको पता चल जाएगा कि दिस आई विल मूव टुवर्ड्स द लेफ्ट साइड बट दिस विल नॉट बी एबल टू मूव टुवर्ड्स द लेफ्ट साइड। सो दैट इज अबाउट चेकिंग द testing is a different thing and normal presenting complaint is different thing. ठीक, now pupillary size and different neurological injuries, actually क्या है कि pupillary size और eyelids को लेकर के बहुत से क्वेश्चंस बनते हैं। ठीक है, क्योंकि इसमें तीन तरह का रोल होता है, इसमें स्मूथ मसल का रोल होता है, राइट, यानी कि ऑटोनॉमिक इनर्वेशन, एंड पैरासिम्पैथेटिक का भी रोल है, सिंपैथेटिक का भी रोल है, एज वेल एज सोमैटिक नर्वस सिस्टम का भी रोल है, राइट, स्केलेटल मसल्स का भी। सो थर्ड नर्व पैरालिसिस में क्या होगा, एलपीएस गई तो पार्शियल टोसिस विल बी देयर, एंड व्हाट अबाउट द प्यूपिलरी साइज, बिकॉज पैरासिम्पैथेटिक रिस्पॉन्स थ्रू, बिकॉज एलपीएस में इसमें ऑक्यूलोमोटर में क्या था, एडिंगर वेस्पाल के थ्रू फॉर द कंस्ट्रिक्टर प्यूपिली, so that means there will be a dilated and a fixed eye pupil, dilated and fixed pupil on the affected side. ये थर्ड नर्व पैरालिसिस में, एंड साथ साथ what will happen, the pupil will be directed downwards and outwards. Horner syndrome, remember Horner syndrome में what was happening, it was the sympathetic loss in the orbits, the muscles there, the smooth muscles there, all innervated by sympathetic innervation will be paralyzed, right? That includes orbitalis muscle, because of that there will be ophthalmos. Then Muller's muscle की वजह से जाएगा तो क्या होगा, partial ptosis हो जाएगी, and dilator pupillae will be lost because of sympathetic innervation. Dilator pupillae में होता है ना, mydriasis is the function response of sympathetic outflow. सो इस केस में हॉर्नर सिंड्रोम में मियोसिस होता है, रिमेंबर मियोसिस लाइक कंस्ट्रिक्शन ऑफ द प्यूपल, ओके ओके। ब्रेन स्टेम डेथ में क्या होगा, ब्रेन स्टेम डेथ का मतलब क्या हो रहा है, हियर वी आर टॉकिंग इज ब्रेन स्टेम डेथ, इट मींस थर्ड फोर्थ सिक्स्थ all nerves are paralyzed, all nerves are injured rather, so all muscles are paralyzed, and don't forget that Edinger-Westphal nucleus lies within the brainstem, that also is lost, right? So the parasympathetic outflow is also lost. Now what remains is the sympathetic outflow, right? Because sympathetic innervation कहां से जा रहा था, इससे जा रहा था superior cervical ganglion, or you can say कि sympathetic outflow is thoracolumbar outflow. So ब्रेन स्टेम डेथ में क्या होगा, सोमैटिक इनर्वेशन लॉस्ट हो गया, पैरासिम्पैथेटिक लॉस्ट हो गया, बचा तो क्या सिर्फ सिंपैथेटिक बचा। तो उसकी वजह से क्या होगा कि देखो, तो ये पार्शियल ये जो टोसिस हो गई इसमें, ठीक है, और साथ साथ क्या है, देयर विल बी डायलेटेड pupils in both the eyes, fixed and dilated pupils in both the eyes, ठीक। और ऐसा ही मिलता है डेथ में, fixed and dilated pupils of both the eyes is a sign of death। ब्रेन स्टेम डेथ होगी तो डेथ तो हो ही जाएगी ना। So fixed and dilated pupils in both the eyes, okay।